we got somebody inside there sitting on the chair. Let's go talk to him.
What are the police doing here in my house?
How long have you been gone?
It's been a while.
Well, I can see you have some new purchases here.
Well, I have a power of attorney. It gives me the right to take care of his finances and do what I please with his money.
Mark is usually very pleasant, but today something is different. I think something has happened to him. He showed me a nasty bruise on his arm, and he also gave me this.
Hey, what's going on with her?
Oh, she's a wanderer. What do we got?
Well, she said her son hit her.
Hey, Danny, why don't you go step outside for us real quick?
Whoa, wait, come on. What? Mom, what did you tell them?
Well, the Penal Code section addresses elder and dependent adult abuse in the same penal code, which is Penal Code section 368. But that particular section defines elders as anyone who's 65 years and older. It's a strict number thing. As long as you're 65, you're an elder. Dependent adults are defined differently. A dependent adult is anyone who's 18 to 64 years old, and that person has some type of physical and or mental limitation that affects that person's ability to carry out normal daily activities or the ability to protect his or her own rights.
You know, one of the concerns I have just generally in our society is we're pretty ageist. We know what it means to be, racist and other sort of ists. But there's also this idea of ageism, which is we kind of discount older adults. We might think that older adults are a drain on our society. Yet I think we really have an important responsibility to care for those who cared for us. And whether somebody has a dementing illness or is in good health, they deserve to be treated respectfully. They deserve to be living in a dignified and clean fashion, and they shouldn't be suffering because they're old.
I think that ageism comes from people believing that they have nothing, someone who's elderly has nothing more to contribute. And if they're living in this facility and they're bedridden and they're, hooked up to tubes and they're being cared for all their needs by, a caregiver, then what are they contributing?
They're taken advantage of by people who know what they're doing, by con artists and people running scams, because those people are easy targets. They generally will just go along with whatever they're being asked to do or whatever they're being told. It's easy picking for the predators and for the people that prey on people who can't sort of take care of themselves and protect themselves.
We need to take these calls seriously. As a population in California, we're getting older and living longer. So it's very important to make sure that we're taking care of the people that need caring for, and that would be our elders and our dependent adults.
There is a segment of our population that is more readily preyed upon than any other. It is our elders and dependent adults. Our society is growing older every day, and we're living longer. Baby boomers officially entered the classification of an elder, age 65, in 2011. This generation will continue to increase until 2030. Dependent adults are one of our most vulnerable populations. These members of our society, though they are younger, age 18 to 64, need care by another for their basic needs. Unfortunately, elders and dependent adults are often taken advantage of and abused. Hello, I'm Mark Bailey, and I'll be your host. In this program, we will explore what types of abuse to look out for. In addition, we will discuss the importance of proper reporting procedures and how, when done correctly, it can ensure the future safety of these victims. When you're called to the scene where an elder or dependent adult has been abused, do you know what agency to call for social services support? Depending on where the crime has been committed, that reporting agency will differ. The goal of this video is to educate law enforcement on how to best respond and assist our elders and dependent adults. This video will cover what kinds of crimes can be committed and possible perpetrators, good investigation techniques, interviewing style and overcoming communication barriers, what to expect when you're called to a licensed nursing home, proper reporting procedures, and lastly, some final thoughts from our subject matter experts.
Sometimes it is difficult because especially the younger guys, they're going out there and they just want a lot of action. And elder calls tend to sound quite a bit less than they are. They really do. I mean, when you hear them or when you first get there, it doesn't look like there's any crime, and it looks like it's just civil. It does. There's no doubt about it. And unless you have a good attitude where you're really looking to protect people or care about people, you're not going to get past that first surface and then actually realize, hey, no, this isn't civil, this is criminal.
When you are a patrol officer or an investigator assigned to respond to investigate reports of abuse against elder or dependent adults, you have to do a thorough investigation. That includes reporting to the proper authorities. It might be Adult Protective Services, it might be the Ombudsman's office. It's not just about writing the police report, it's about making the proper notifications.
A lot of the cases that we see that begin as an elder abuse case end as homicide investigations.
Elder and dependent adult abuse can come in many forms. There is physical abuse, which includes sexual abuse. Then there is also financial abuse, neglect, psychological abuse, isolation, and abandonment. Abuse is usually at the hands of a trusted individual that is either a family member or a paid caregiver at a residence or facility. Sometimes, though, perpetrators can be a neighbor, contractor, or someone in a position of authority, such as a bus driver or worker at a regional center for dependent adults.
King 5 respondent had checked the welfare. Caller's a neighbor, claims she's concerned she hasn't seen her elderly neighbor in over a week, and there's no response at the front door.
61 King 5, 10 Farm Route.
That call sounds boring. Let's go catch some bad guys.
61 King 2, suspicious vehicle in the Lucky Liquor parking lot at Main and Washington.
There we go. Let's go cover them.
We got sent to this other call. What if there's something seriously wrong with this person? We didn't go. How'd you feel then? We have to go to the welfare check. Every call's important.
It's probably just a family matter anyway. It's not even a crime. Hey, let's make this fast, and get out of here. River City Police! River City Police!
Did you try the doorknob?
It's locked. Let's check around back.
Yeah, let's go check. Hey, we got somebody inside there sitting on the chair. Let's go talk to him. Hello, sir. River City Police. Hi, I'm Officer Richards. We're here to check your welfare. Can I come in and talk to you for a moment?
Sure, come on in.
Is there anyone else here, sir?
No?
So the TV's a little loud. You mind if I turn it off?
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Officer Richards. What is your name, sir?
I'm Howard. Howard Timon.
We're here to check your welfare, like I said. Can I have a seat and talk to you for a moment?
Yes, please. Sit down.
How long have you lived here, sir?
I've lived here with my wife for 52 years, but she died last year.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Do you live alone now?
My daughter moved in here a few months ago, and she came to take care of me.
Okay, what does she do?
Well, she feeds me, she helps to take care of me, she handles all the money and bills for me now because she says that, you know, with the computers and that stuff, it's too complicated for me.
Do you like her taking care of you?
Well, sure. I like living in my own house. I own this place outright. Proud to say I'm debt-free. A lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifices. I need my daughter. I don't want to move into a nursing home. I know it's hard for her, but I try not to make it too difficult for her. She can't work anymore because she's got to take care of me.
Wow, sir, are these pictures of you? Were you in the military?
Yes, I was. I proudly served in the 1st Cavalry Division of the U.S. Army. I was in the Korean War. I really enjoyed being with the guys. But we did have some scary moments back then.
I bet you did. Hey, I'm gonna go check out the rest of the house.
Okay.
Mr. Timon, do you mind?
No, go ahead.
So, Mr. Timon, back to your daughter.
Yes, she lives here. She kind of gets stressed taking care of me, so every now and then she'll just go out for fun.
River City Police, anyone here?
How long has she been gone?
Well, I don't know. I think she left sometime yesterday.
Yesterday? Have you been sitting here since she left?
Yeah, I don't walk so well, so sometimes I just forget stuff.
Have you eaten since you left?
No, I can't get up.
Can I get you some water or something?
There is some water right over there. I can't reach it. I am very thirsty. Thank you so
You're welcome.
much.
How does your daughter help you with the bills?
Well, she pays them all, I think. I'm not really sure. You know, my wife used to take care of all that stuff for me. My daughter says we don't have much money since she isn't working, so we have to really pinch our pennies. She's a good girl, you know. She's doing a fine job. I know she's doing her best.
Dad, what did you do? What are the police doing here in my house?
What do you think of the initial response, the younger officer, the newer officer? What was his attitude like?
Well, that's that inexperience. I mean, he's excited. He wants to go out and do the hard charging, the stuff that has that beautiful appeal, and he doesn't really understand yet that any call could turn ugly. And actually, it's usually those calls you don't expect that are going to go this route where it's going to affect somebody even more than finding somebody in a stolen car.
So this may not be just civil like he was saying.
No, definitely not civil.
A little more to it.
What are we looking at here?
We're looking at elder abuse. She's taking advantage of his finances. She's not paying the bills. She's leaving him unattended. He's not able to get out of the chair, so he's stuck sitting in that chair so long. He has to urinate. He has to, urinate in a bottle. So there's definitely elder abuse going on.
Okay. Anybody else? What do you think when you come into a situation like that? What are you looking for?
Sarge, I think you have two thresholds in the video. You have the elderly. He said he was in the Korean War, so that puts him in the age bracket where he meets the age requirement, and also the dependency. He said he couldn't get out of his chair, and he was dependent upon his daughter for assistance. So I think those two factors make him fit under for the crime statute.
What are the things that you look for in neglect?
The ability to care for themselves. If they're not able to do that on their own, they have to have help. The person taking care of them can't just leave them there by himself.
And what did you think about the initial response? Would the officers do well there?
Well, it's good that they followed up and at least tried to make contact with someone in the house, even though they received no answer at the front door. They took that extra step to walk around and...
Yes. What do you think his goal was when he was talking to the gentleman? What kind of details did you hear in there that you think would be important to this kind of investigation if we're going to take it forward?
They talking about how he hadn't, he didn't have any water. He said he was thirsty.
Mm-hmm.
He hadn't eaten since yesterday, the day prior.
And that his daughter was his primary caregiver.
Right.
So how did the father react when asked all those questions? What was he doing?
I think he was a little bit initially protective of his daughter because he didn't want to lose the only person in his life. He's already lost his wife, and he's kind of become dependent on the daughter, even though she's not taking care of him appropriately.
So it's possible he doesn't know what's going on.
Yes.
On the other hand, it might be possible that he is protecting her because he's got some interest in having her there. But that's got to be a tough situation, not knowing. I mean, trying to say that your daughter is the one that is committing a crime,
Well,
possibly?
and he's afraid to lose his independence.
There you go. There's another
He's afraid he's going to end up in an old folks' home, and he loses the home he worked for. Even though he is confined to the chair, there's still mentally he feels he has independence. He has earned that, and he lives there.
Okay, so then what's your role showing up to this situation? And what are
Contact
you looking for?
APS, Adult Protective Services, because they would have the resources and they would have access to things that we may not have as police officers. So I would contact APS, get them involved.
What I'm hearing is you saying there's a lot of resources out there for him, and you're going to try to facilitate that if you're in these officers?
Exactly.
All right. What other steps are you going to take?
Through talking with him and talking with his daughter, there may be a family friend or someone else that can come and take care of him and make sure that he's going to be cared for.
I think the way the scenario is presented, it needs further investigation. You're presented with a lot of facts, and they paint a bad picture that he's being abused. I think they need to follow up on that. A lot of times you have to dig a little bit more, and the one officer was doing when he was asking questions on how she was helping out was kind of leading to that. We need to talk to him more, figuring out the financial and the physical aspect of the perceived abuse.
I would even say the cognitive side of it, that does he know the date, the time? He knows he's at home, but again, what's his mindset regarding time and ultimate surroundings? Does he know when he last ate? Was it yesterday? He may think it's yesterday, but it may have been 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
What I would do is I would arrest her. You have probable cause to arrest her. I would take her to jail. I would not leave there and leave him in that situation.
Okay.
That's where APS would come in. I would contact APS, have APS come out there.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, your main concern is for him right now.
It's for his, right now, because if
well-being.
you leave him there, she's going to continue to drain his bank account. There's probable cause to arrest her. And I mean, if it gets rejected for further investigation, so be it. But there's no way that I'm going to leave her in that house with him, with access to his finances, and him sitting in that chair, unable to take care of himself.
What other steps are you going to take?
Well, I think at this point, again, you have to investigate further. How do we know that the items were bought with his funds? How do we know what's going where? Right now, you have plenty of reasonable suspicion, but you've got to continue that and go to that path to get to that probable cause.
Is there any other potential crimes or potential issues that you could see that he might be in need of right now that you're there? Is there anything else you guys can
Definitely,
think?
I would say definitely the medical portion, because even his hygiene, his clothes are dirty. You know, sitting that long, he could have circulation problems, and he couldn't even get to the medication.
Yeah, he can't get to
Again,
his
like
water.
you said, we don't know how long he had been sitting in that chair.
Exactly.
Because certain medications you have to have a few times a day, or at least once a day.
There's a great consideration. If he's not getting his medication, what other complications might be kind of unintended? So, great job.
Yeah, it brings up a good point, because I think he said in the video he was sitting there, he hadn't seen his daughter since the day before. And when people sit for that long a period of times, and if that's kind of characteristic of how he's left, they're sitting long periods of time, they're laying, they develop the bed sores, and that's kind of the number one indication for neglect a lot of times too.
So what I'm hearing you say is there's a lot more that we need to really look into.
Right. Yeah.
To really get to the bottom of this, because it may at first seem maybe down here, but we're starting to climb a little bit.
Hey, contacting the family, because for all we know, this guy had a ton of money.
Yeah.
Daughter moved in, she wants to get to the inheritance first and blow through it before any other family member gets it, and they're unaware he's in that position.
Great point. There might be other family members out there that we could reach out to.
Yeah, and the family might be able to provide more insight in terms of the financial background to lead us to that point. They might already have documentation, or they started down this road, but they don't know to report it, and they might be able to fill in that piece of the puzzle for us that we would need to establish the elements of the crime.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, those little details right there are huge. So I think you guys are on the right path.
Good work, man. That's. I guess you guys are pretty prepared to get out there, hit the field, and answer the next one. All right, be safe.
We need officers to go out there, have an open mind, do a thorough investigation when they receive that patrol call, see what they've got. Look for the elements of elder independent adult abuse. Look for the other associated crimes that go along with that, whether it's physical or financial, and document what you see.
In order for a prosecutor or any deputy district attorney to do our job, we absolutely rely on good police investigation. It's completely a team effort. If there's not a good police investigation that's encapsulated in police reports, I cannot file a case.
Sometimes it's really difficult to figure out exactly what's going on. But that's not the most important thing. You don't always have to figure out exactly what's going on as the responding officer. The most important thing is the safety of the elder or the dependent adult, and then you document it to start the chain of an investigation where more people are checking on them.
Law enforcement officers should call APS anytime they don't feel that they can leave the victim in the current situation.
For Adult Protective Services, we want to make sure that seniors and dependent adults are safe in their homes and they're safe in their environment. So whether that means they're no longer able to care for themselves or their caregiver, whoever's caring for them, is no longer meeting those needs, we need to make sure that there is a place for them to go where their needs are being met.
We really have to care about these people. They're very susceptible to be taken advantage of with neglect, physical abuse, or financial abuse.
It's really tragic. I mean, to say that somebody has, spent their lives, doing good work, raising families, having a career, earning money so that they themselves could be self-sufficient at the end of life, and to have that taken away is just absolutely tragic.
It's very common for people to suffer more than one kind of abuse, particularly emotional abuse plus something else. And we sometimes call that polyvictimization when you have more than one type of abuse going on. Which means it's really important when you're seeing somebody where you're concerned about, say, something like neglect, that you also keep in mind that there might be another type of abuse going on. So you want to ask a few more questions about financial abuse, or is anybody hitting you, or emotional kind of abuse as well.
Whenever the officer sees mental confusion, it is important to try to find out the reason.
There are many reasons that an older adult can be confused. It might be that they have an illness like Alzheimer's disease or a different kind of dementia, but some older adults are confused because they're malnourished or they're dehydrated or they're over-medicated, and that can be purposeful. Medications can be used to make people really confused, so they sign over documents.
One of the reasons they're so susceptible is because they start to feel like they're a burden. I mean, their whole lives they've taken care of themselves, they've been very independent, and all of a sudden they can't be. They let themselves get pushed really far before they're going to tell anybody about it. They're trying to be as quiet as they can to make as little waves as they can.
Financial scams are a growing problem in elder and dependent adult abuse cases. Strangers contacting the victim by telephone or internet may take advantage of this population.
I think that elders and dependent adults are particularly susceptible to phone scams. They just want someone to speak to.
Say a landscaper, for example, is doing a re-landscape on a yard, and they bill the person, and the individual, the senior, pays them, writes them a check. And then they come back the next week and they say, you didn't pay me for this. I thought I wrote you a check. They say, oh, no, that was for something else. So they can take advantage of seniors by trying to confuse them. Seniors like to appear and remain independent, and so they aren't probably necessarily going to engage in an argument with what they perceive as a professional.
When someone tries to steal money from an elder or dependent adult, the fact that you try to steal the money is an attempted grand theft. Whether you're in fact successful in taking the money is another issue. But the fact that you tried to steal money, that is still a crime.
The psychological abuse of elders and dependent adults usually goes hand in hand with the physical abuse. Some examples of psychological abuse may be yelling or screaming at the elder or dependent adult, calling them names, belittling them, making them feel less of a human being.
Well, psychological abuse against elderly and dependent adult victims can be really tough to investigate because it can be very hard to prove.
It's very scary because many people that are being abused are afraid to say something. They're victimized. They're threatened that if they speak of the abuse, they'll be thrown into a nursing home.
When someone is a caregiver or caretaker of an adult, of an elder or dependent adult, the caregiver has a duty of care towards the victim, towards that vulnerable person. Neglect is when you don't fulfill that duty and you basically don't do what you're supposed to do for that person. You don't bathe them. You don't feed them. You don't give them water. You basically don't take care of them. And because that person is so physically vulnerable and more frail, the neglect can lead to very serious bodily injury.
Often a friend or loved one with good intentions will take on the role as caregiver, but it can be a very difficult job without the proper training or resources. What is most important is for officers to recognize whether a caregiver is behaving in a truly criminal manner.
We can't forget that not only are we looking to prove, if we can, that a suspect is guilty or that they have committed this crime, but if they didn't do anything wrong, they deserve to have their name cleared, and that's part of our job as well.
In a lot of our cases, the elders are being physically abused by their children, sometimes grandchildren, but mostly children.
It's not surprising that family members take advantage of their elders because they're in a position of trust. They're already in the home. Oftentimes there's nobody to report the activity, and by the time people start to catch on, it's typically been going on for a very long time.
And I think for elder victims, a lot of times they don't know that they're being victimized, and sometimes they don't really mind being victimized, especially if it's a family member, because they love that person and want that person to stay.
It is a way of creating or fabricating a false world where the perpetrator is the only person who apparently cares about them and nobody else. So they control that through isolation.
That abuser will isolate the neighbors and friends from the elder or dependent adult, so that creates that dependent relationship, helps the abuser assert power and control over the elder or dependent adult, and get them to pressure them to sign the quitclaim deed or the power of attorney or get the name on the bank account.
Most of them are retired and they're living on a fixed income. They don't have the ability to earn the things that they lost back to make that up. And they're kind of stuck. And so if they're out tens or sometimes even hundreds of thousands of dollars, that has a severe impact on their quality of life.
The majority of elder abuse going on around us in society is not reported and we're not aware of. There are many also cases of elder death which are missed because people are not considering elder abuse as a cause.
I think it's important for patrol officers to take these types of calls seriously because you may only get one call to this residence, and it may be the random call that you think is nothing, but when you go to the home, and if you really are paying attention and you put yourself in the position that you're going to be the advocate for that elderly person right at the moment.
A lot of officers will just assume that it's a family matter or that it's a civil matter, but that it's not criminal. And the reason sometimes officers might think that a particular situation is civil is because when they talk to the individuals involved, it sounds like it's a dispute between family members.
Investigative techniques vary from call to call. When dealing with an elder or dependent adult, you might want to use a different approach when conducting your investigation.
What are the police doing here in my house? I said, what are you doing in my house?
Ma'am, we just got a call about your dad to check on him. He's in the back with my partner now.
Who made that call?
I can't tell you that, but he's fine. He's in the back, okay?
I bet it was that nosy Mrs. Friedman. She is a busybody. Everything is fine here.
Ma'am.
Everything's fine.
Ma'am.
Oh, he likes me taking care of him. He wants to live here in his own house, not end up in an old folks' home.
Ma'am, how long
right, Dad?
Ma'am, it doesn't look that way right now, okay? How long have you been gone?
You know, it's not that easy taking care of him. He can sometimes get really short with me. He's old school military, and I just have to step away sometimes.
Ma'am, you're not listening. How long have you been really gone?
Not that long, just a night.
Well, how long have you been taking care of your dad, and how long have you lived here?
It's been a while.
Well, I can see you have some new purchases here.
Well, I have a power of attorney. It gives me the right to take care of his finances and do what I please with his money.
Well, may I see that?
we're fine. My dad signed it and everything. I'm not doing anything wrong.
Ma'am, what's your name?
My name is Natalie Timon.
Well, according to this, you're supposed to be taking care of your dad with his own money, not buying yourself new things.
Well, that isn't fair. I gave up my life to come out here and take care of him. I should have something too.
Well, I'm sorry, but that's not an excuse. Do you even work?
No, I got laid off. This is my job, full time.
Okay, ma'am. Well, I hear my partner coming back. Would you mind taking a seat for me?
Need to grab some meds. What'd you find out?
Hey, just take a look outside. See that car she pulled up in?
You gotta be kidding me.
And then look at all the stuff inside the living room.
Okay.
And then look at all these bills right here.
All right.
I think we got something a little bit more.
Okay.
You might want to ask him about this, see if everything's all right.
Yeah, I'll go ask him.
All right.
Here you are, sir.
Yeah, that's them.
Mr. Timon, you lived in this house for 50 plus years. Do you still have a mortgage?
No, oh no. We paid this off years ago. That was something that was real important for us both.
Do you have any outstanding debts?
No, I like to keep my bills paid in full each month.
Have you opened any credit applications for credit cards?
Nope, don't believe in them. If you can't afford it, you don't get it.
Do you still drive?
No, I don't see so good, so it makes me nervous now.
How do you get to where you need to go?
Oh, my daughter usually drives me. She's doing a fine job.
Are you pretty much confined to this room as your living space?
I don't, since I don't get around so well, I just stay down here to myself. And my daughter has the rest of the house. I've got everything I need here. She thinks it's best if I just stay put.
I think your daughter's home now. Do you mind if I go talk to her?
No, but I need to use the bathroom. Can you hand me my walker for me?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Did you learn anything new?
Yeah, she showed me the power of attorney, but doesn't that just make it civil?
Not necessarily. And all those bills and credit applications I saw were in his name and her name. And on the pink slip to that car out there, it's only in his name.
Yeah, I saw that, but what did he say? Did he say anything's wrong?
No, he wouldn't say anything bad about her. He just kept saying how he needs her and that she was a good girl.
Poor guy. Doesn't even realize his own daughter's taking advantage of him.
You know, the indicators here point to neglect and possible financial abuse. We have to notify detectives.
You're right. We should call APS.
You know, I bet this isn't the first time that he's been left alone like this. I'm gonna call the station and see if a detective can roll out. We should also take photos.
All right, I'll take care of that. I won't admit this again, but I'm glad we came on this call. All right.
All right, I'll check on him.
Why are you happy that you come to this call?
Because you may have saved that guy's life. There's just a lot of things going on that if they hadn't gone there, it would have continued to go on.
Okay. So as this progressed, what else did you see other than just the obvious neglect and that he's living in his state? What else did you learn?
He didn't realize this was going on.
You think so? Why would you say that?
Well, the officer was questioning him about opening of the credit card statements and the car and stuff, and through his kind of mini interview with him, he confirmed that all this stuff he wasn't realize was going on, where they had the paper documentation that she was doing it.
Based on the interviews with him, do you think he doesn't know what's going on because of his mental state and his age, or is this being hidden from him? I mean, what do you think?
It could be both.
I think it's unfortunate that she's absolutely justifying her actions by saying that she's taking care of him, but obviously she's not doing a very good job of taking care of him, but she's doing a pretty darn good job of taking care of herself. I'm assuming just waiting for him to pass on so she inherits everything.
She has a sense of entitlement. That's what she seems like. She's entitled to that stuff.
What was
I mean, this
her
is a
main
veteran,
excuse?
this is her dad,
Yeah. So what's our next step? What's our obligation here?
I think you try and get a hold of another family member.
Okay.
If there's anyone else that can help oversee the account, relay that information to APS.
What's his big concern?
Leaving his residence.
He doesn't want to leave.
So we want to keep him safe, yet he doesn't want to leave. How do we rectify that?
Unfortunately, the situation may not be ideal initially. You got to do what's best for him for the time being, and then hopefully, as we continue further investigation, further follow-up, we can beat both needs can be met.
So let's say he does kind of come to this realization, hey, that's my daughter, and this is not a good situation. I need to change, but I'm not leaving my house. This is my house. Where do we go from there?
I would think, well, what I would do is I would contact the informant who called us out there. I mean, it's not necessarily a family member. It could be that nosy neighbor that she inquired about. I mean, if he doesn't have any cognitive issues, he wants to stay in his home, and the neighbor, informant, or whomever it is willing to take on that responsibility, contact that person and see if they're willing to come in and help.
That's an option. Are there any other options that we could look out that maybe help take care of this guy?
Ask him who he feels comfortable with.
Wow, right
Does
there.
he have a buddy? Does he have a friend? Like my partner just said, a neighbor that he comes over and talks to him every once in a while. And a lot of times they end up separating because of the daughter.
There's your point right there. What happens if he's been
she
cut
isolates
off?
him. So.
Yeah. What other aspects are our investigations going to kind of hone in on now that we've kind of dug a little deeper?
Well, at this point, because she's already said he's giving me power of attorney so I can spend the money however I want, I would take advantage of that and sit down and just tell her, hey, you know what, you're right, you have power of attorney. So what are some of these things that you buy for? Do you use these for him? Are you buying them from him? And lock her into some statements so that later on you have it.
Yeah. And that goes back to that investigation. We're actually really out here to help this gentleman conduct an investigation. And you have to ask those questions to really find out. So that's an excellent point. Hey, where does his income come from? What other aspects do you think there are there that we need to look into?
Okay, he said he didn't have a mortgage. Okay, so now start looking for those loan documents. Start looking for those things that corroborate her crime, that shows what she's done. That's just part of, the investigation. So you start looking for the fruits of their crime, look for the loan documents. For me, like I said before, she's going to jail.
All right, what other types of crimes would we might want to look into as well?
Fraud,
like
forgery. Well, that she's obviously signing loan documents, opening accounts. Whether with or without his signature, she may be telling him to sign a certain document with by deception.
I like where you're going and think of that. So start thinking about other crimes that may not be really readily apparent when you watch something like this and you really have to get into.
But what about asking him? Because I don't think we ever asked him, did he sign that? She could have signed both of their names.
There you go, right there. That's a great point. What if it isn't his signature?
And even though she has that power of attorney and she can sign for him, that's only for his interest. She can't do it for her own. And her saying, I deserve these things, and that entitlement that you mentioned earlier, she can't do it for those purposes. So it still delves into that fraud aspect of it because she doesn't have the authorization to do that.
What other kinds of abuse could be going on here?
There could be some form of physical abuse. You don't know. The psychological abuse, it's any controlling relationship. She's going to threaten that if I leave, you're going to go back here, or I'm not going to give you your food, or I'm not going to give you your medication, or I'm going to disconnect the TV because if he's stuck in that chair and he watches TV, she could threaten physical. She could actually do physical.
What did the first Officer Richards, what did he actually get him? He got him some water, and then what else did he get him?
Medication.
Okay. Is that a way to control someone? How would you do that?
Over-medicate him.
Okay.
Or just not give his medication.
Or under.
Yeah, under, over. You start to get really deep into this where it turned out to be just a check the welfare call. Good discussion. All right. Let's go be safe out there.
Sometimes we respond out to the scene as a first responder, and we see something that we know is not right, but the documentation is critical in these events because if we don't get it right now, and it does turn into a homicide investigation, it's going to mean an awful lot more work for the investigator that has to try and pick those pieces up afterwards.
It's really important when the patrol officer is in the home and they're starting to see signs of financial abuse, or they're at least suspecting that the elder is being taken advantage of. At the bare minimum is, while you're in the home, to try and gather as much evidence as you can, because once you leave the home, in order to return the home and search for those items might require a search warrant. Once the daughter or the loved one is aware that you're on to what's happening in the home, they're going to start to destroy evidence. They're going to make it a lot more difficult for you to figure out what the scheme is or figure out what's happening and to get to the bottom of it.
Thorough reporting should include taking care of that elder first, building a rapport with that elder so they can have a level of trust.
When we're interviewing an older adult, we really want to get a handle on whether or not they have hearing problems, vision problems, some idea about whether they seem to be having memory problems as well, so that we're interviewing somebody in a calm and quiet environment. We're making sure that we have private time with them so that they're not being intimidated by somebody who might be actually the person who is abusing them.
If the victim can be interviewed, that's obviously essential, and to record those interviews, because if it is an elder or a dependent adult, you may only have one chance to interview them.
It's just critically important that first responders take a careful report. The information that they give right at that moment might be especially important, especially if we're dealing with somebody who might have a dementing illness like Alzheimer's disease, where what you can get at that moment might be lost afterwards. And this makes it even more important for first responders to document carefully what they were told, what they're seeing, what the odors might have been like, document how messy or unhygienic the area looked. Were there stairs to go in and out of the house, and this person is in a walker, so how would they get in and out of the house? All of those sorts of environmental things are very important to document carefully. Take a very careful look at the medication somebody's on. That's something that's extremely helpful to me. I would like to know the names of the medications on the bottle, the names of the doctors who are on the bottle, and also the dosages.
Recently, a few months ago, there was a case that it was a physical neglect of a dependent adult woman who had had a stroke, and even though she was only in her 50s, she was completely dependent on her daughter. And the officers did such a fantastic job describing the environment, describing how the victim smelled, how she kept talking about how hungry she was, and did such a good job interviewing neighbors that I was able to file the felony. And when I met the officer in court, I told him that. I said, if you had not written such a great report, this probably would have been just filed as a misdemeanor.
So write what you did, just don't attach an opinion to it. There are resources through that multidisciplinary approach where people who have the foundational knowledge to determine capacity will do that.
Oftentimes, I'll get reports from initial responders, and there may be one or two photographs attached to it. And in my experience, you can never take too many photographs. The more, the better.
Their concerns are, what's going to happen to me? If this person is taken from my life, what am I going to do? You know, are you trying to move me? Are you trying to conserve me? A lot of times they don't want to be conserved. They want to feel like they still have control over their lives. So we have to just try and reassure them that we're only there to help and that we're only there to investigate a crime. So we're not there to try and change their life. We're not there trying to make decisions for them. And we should not go in with the idea that we know everything and we have all the answers to their particular situation, because we don't.
Remember, a power of attorney is a legal document that can often be abused by caregivers. It can be easily downloaded from the internet. Always check the intent of the POA.
A power of attorney is a document that allows a principal to authorize an agent to do things on that principal's behalf. So often an older adult may be having trouble paying their bills on time, that sort of thing, and they will sign a power of attorney that authorizes a child or a grandchild to pay those bills on their behalf. It's not a license for the agent to take the principal's assets and do whatever the agent wishes to do with those assets.
In that kind of scenario where it is, say, a daughter or a son or just a child taking care of their parent, that parent does have a Medi-Cal and they are receiving Medi-Cal benefits, and those benefits are not necessarily going to that person who is meant to be receiving them, and they're abusing those funds, then that is something that could be reported to the Bureau of Medi-Cal Fraud and Elder Abuse as well.
Our older generation respect our law enforcement officers more than probably any other segment of the population besides our own families, I suppose. Not to mention, many of them are, veterans. They've served their country. I mean, they're great people. They're important people. They love us, and they deserve our help. Look, we'll help anybody that needs our help because that's our job. But don't forget, those people love us more than just about anybody else. And it's so important when they call for help, or when somebody calls and says that elder or dependent adult needs help, that we get there and with a smile on our face, do whatever we can for them.
Having a different style when investigating abuse against elders and dependent adults is important. In this next segment, we will explore some tips on how to more effectively interview this population.
Many people who have disabilities, the so-called dependent adults, live in the community. That's, of course, what they want and what we want for them, and we do our best to support people in that sort of a situation. They may live in a group home. They may live in an assisted living type of facility, or even in a nursing home, depending on the level of care that they need.
And so I think what's really significant with investigating elder and dependent adult cases is that you really have to look below the surface. You cannot walk into a situation and just make a snap judgment based on the way things appear. You have to really talk to everyone involved and try to find out what the facts are. And you also cannot talk to just one side. You try to talk to everyone to try to figure out what all the facts are before you come to any type of conclusion.
There are barriers that you may need to overcome when interviewing your victim. For instance, not all elders can hear well, or some may have cognitive issues. Some dependent adults may have difficulty speaking, which will mean extra time on your part to demonstrate the patience needed to get their complete story.
5028, I copy, you're on scene.
I want to confirm that I'm responding to an assisted living facility.
Affirmative. This address is a residential neighborhood. However, it's an assisted living facility for dependent adults.
10-4, I see the woman now.
Hi, officer. How are we doing?
Hello, ma'am. Did you call the police?
Yes, I did. I have a client, a resident in this facility that I check in on from time to time. His name is Mark.
And what's your relationship with Mark?
I am his conservator. I'm with the Office of the Public Guardian.
Public Guardian?
I've been assigned by the county to check in on his welfare and speak for him regarding his living conditions or his care. He is a dependent adult and cannot take care of himself and doesn't have any family nearby.
Well, why is he living here? Is he mentally ill or developmentally disabled?
No. A number of years ago, he was in a car accident and had a serious brain injury. He lives here because he can't take care of himself and he doesn't have family here to help out. He can understand conversation, but has difficulty speaking. It's very belabored and almost impossible to understand. But he does understand what's going on around him.
So why'd you call the police?
Mark is usually very pleasant and likes that I stop by, but today something is different. He wouldn't look me in the eye. He didn't even try to talk, and he's also pretty smelly. I asked the staff about this, and they said that he wouldn't allow them to bathe him. They usually assist in his hygiene, but this week he's been very defiant. I think something has happened to him. He showed me a nasty bruise on his arm, and he also gave me this.
Can you take me in to see him?
Of course. Again, I was super concerned that something was wrong, so I wanted to get you out here as soon as possible. Yes, so I definitely want to get you here and introduce you to Mark. Mark, this officer is here to help you today.
Hi, Mark. How are you today? I'm Officer Matthews from the River City Police Department. Is it okay if I sit down and have a conversation? All right, thank you. It's okay if I call you Mark, right? We're all set. Thank you. We'll let you know if we need anything. Ooh, I noticed you have a bruise on your arm. That's pretty bad. How did you get that?
It's okay, Mark. Yes, I showed her the note.
Does it hurt? Can you tell me how you got it? Maybe you could write down what you want to tell me.
Yeah.
Get me out of here? Is that how you feel, Mark?
Get me out of here.
I'm gonna try to get you out of here.
No. I'm scared.
It's okay. I'm here to help you, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mark.
So what'd you see when the officer first got there? What was the worker she talked to? Who was that?
Conservator. She's responsible for his money and his where he's going to stay, and so she pretty much makes decisions for him.
Okay. So when you get to that point and you hear and you're listening to this person, what's your first concern?
Concerned about him and getting him out of there. And then also it didn't help that the little guy wanted to hear what was going on. He was acting a little strange.
Okay. As you walk through this facility, what are you seeing? What do you observe?
The other patients there as well, so they may be getting abused as well, so that's something that's to be looked into as well. I mean, obviously they're all dependent adults, so we need to make sure we do our due diligence as far as not just Mark, but also the whole place.
Exactly. Is this the only issue we're here for today? Okay, that's a good aspect to look into. What else? What are we concerned with?
There was an event, Sarge, that happened that made him change from what she noticed. He was normally pleasant when she would always come there. He was happy to see her. And then some event happened that we don't know what event happened to make him change. He wasn't pleasant. He didn't enjoy things. He doesn't want to be bathed. He's got this mark on his arm. And so there's something happening there that we have to investigate.
So what are some of the reasons or some events that could have happened that would change Mark's behavior?
The assumption could be physical abuse.
Okay.
Or maybe even sexual abuse.
Yeah, sexual
not
abuse.
Not wanting to be shot, bathed, and he's no longer allowing people to see him undressed.
Yeah, it's a good indication.
Clean him up, and when I don't know how long he's been there, but if he was, in a routine where he's allowing them to take care of him and of his hygiene, and now he's not, like he said, it's either physical abuse or something that made him feel uncomfortable getting undressed.
So who are we looking at, possible suspects?
When you roll in there, it could be that there's a problem with one of the other people that are there. Yeah. They could be causing the problem. It could be somebody that they room with him and they're wreaking havoc inside there, because I've seen that on a number of occasions. Yeah, it could be somebody else that's there. And maybe the little guy, as you referred to him, came in and wanted to overhear it, because he's worried that they're not actually reporting that there's incidents or they have someone that's causing a problem. So they're concerned about civil liability.
So we could be looking at an unreported incident that he's concerned with because that's his job. Whose responsibility is it to report an incident like this?
Well, it's us. This is a mandated reporter. I don't know if they have mandated reporter restrictions or requirements as a dependent care facility.
I think they are mandated reporters. If they're in there, they're mandated reporters. And when he got hurt, somebody should have been calling. It shouldn't have been waiting for the conservator to come and discover what happened.
Conservator's also mandated. So
how does that help with our cooperation from maybe a staff member that is a mandated reporter that didn't?
They may not be very cooperative.
I think having the conservator on site, you're already way ahead of the game to relocate them. They've got many more resources than us patrol officers do. They can reach out to other facilities and get him placed, or maybe relocate him to a safer location while we continue with the investigation. There's no reason to leave him there.
So where do we go from here? What's our next step we're going to take?
Well, I think she was going down the line of the right way. The conservator already told her that he knows what's going on, but he has difficulty communicating.
Okay.
And she did a great job asking about, can he write it down?
Yes.
Well, if he can communicate through writing, now try and get some details. Yeah, there's going to be bits and pieces missing initially, but some details to try and give her an idea of why does he want to get out of there? Why does he feel he needs to get out of there?
What are your concerns when you're dealing with this right now? You've got him in front of you saying he's scared, he wants to get out of there. What's your really major concern right now?
His protection, making sure that he doesn't keep getting re-victimized, or if he is a victim, making sure that he's not the suspects on site there, preventing them from having contact with him anymore.
And now the other clients that are there.
And if it is a crime and it might be sexual, then what other issues do we have to deal with?
Now you're going to have to go in and separate each and every individual and talk to each and every individual, see if this thing is happening to anybody else.
Staff, what do you think about that? Staff could help you?
Or could be your suspect.
Or could be your suspect. So what do we really want to make sure that we gather and collect?
His statements, get photographs, photograph the injuries, but most important is how much can he tell us?
Yeah. What are our other concerns?
The other people in there?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, is he being victimized by a staff member? Is that staff member going to victimize another resident? Well, what does Mark want?
He wants out.
He wants out, but why? Is it like you said, because of a staff member, or is it somebody that's new that's just come into the home?
Yeah,
and
and
if we remove
unfortunately,
that person, would that solve the problem?
You may not get that until you get him out.
So you talked about the staff member, shall we say, that was kind of listening in.
The little guy.
The little guy. What do we think about the little guy?
I think I would talk to him. I would definitely talk to him.
I think it'd be good to talk to all the staff members there. It was mentioned before that maybe we won't get a whole lot of cooperation, but at least you lock them into a statement. Hey, did you see that bruise? It's either going to be yes or no, or if they did, well, how do you know how he got it? I mean, there's going to be some answers that are there. And even if it was caused by a staff member, there might be a staff member that saw it, didn't realize they had to report it, or they don't agree with what's happening. A lot of times you get that stuff where it's somebody's a little bit more physical with somebody and they don't agree with it, but they're afraid to speak up because they need their job.
Sure.
And a lot of times that'll come out if you do speak to everyone, you can probably get to the bottom of the truth. They might all cover it up, but at least you lock them into a story.
Does the bruise equal crime?
No.
No.
What does it mean?
That's what we have to find out.
An event happened, but that coupled with the fear, talking to the employees might, or the staff members there might clear that up.
How'd you like how the officer talked to Mark? What'd you see there?
She didn't talk down to him. She was finding a way to communicate with him. So.
Okay. All right, good discussion. All right, be safe out there.
I'm telling you, they will look in your eyes and will know immediately if you care. If you sit down on the couch with them, they'll know immediately if you care. If they want to see you're going to give them time. Once you, oh, no, I'll sit down, I got time. You want a glass of water? Take the glass of water.
When we're interviewing potential victims that are elderly or dependent adults, it's super important that we build some rapport so that we can get the information that we require for our investigation.
We want to speak slowly and clearly. And if they have any cognitive impairment, then it's good to know that and to just present one idea at a time so that it's very easy for them to follow the questions.
You want to be careful to sit down where maybe the light from the window is shining on you, not in their eyes. You need to be mindful of if they're hearing, and I would just say, ask them, can you hear me okay? Can you see me okay?
And if you will ask questions and be a good listener, they will tell you. They'll tell you a lot of stuff you don't necessarily need to know, but that gets you to the point where they will tell you the information that you do need to know.
In some instances, it is better to ask for permission because people clam up when they see that you're writing things down. Once you develop some rapport and they believe that you're there to help, they may feel a lot more comfortable with you writing everything down, which in turn they will be able to tell you more.
If you just rush out and start making questions or cutting them off and butting in, then they won't be able to tell you because all they know is what they're trying to get out. So you have to hush, you have to be quiet, you have to listen.
Having them feel that the only reason we're there right at that moment is for them and to listen to them. If we can project that to the person, it really allows them to feel more comfortable in giving us a story about what happened, and it actually ends up saving us time in the long run. The first responders' documentation is critical when I'm asked to review a case of possible abuse or neglect. Do they see bruising with a really careful documentation about where that bruising may be? We know from some studies that bruising on the head, face, neck, upper arms, abdomen, torso really is more consistent with an abusive kind of an injury.
So you always want to try to interview your victim alone first, even if the caregiver's saying, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about, she's got Alzheimer's, he's got aphasia, whatever. You still need to try.
Oftentimes, people who are part of the staff in a facility like that want to know exactly what's going on and why are the police in the home and what's being said. Maybe everything they're doing is on the up and up, but maybe it's not. And so it's really important that you get the victim alone, away from staff, so that he or she feels comfortable talking to the officer. That just increases the likelihood that you're going to get a disclosure from the victim.
One of the things that we try to be aware of is if there are baby monitors, so looking for baby monitors. It can get tricky when you're going into a home by yourself, because you can be sitting there talking to a senior and all of a sudden realize there's a baby monitor sitting there and the suspected abuser's in the kitchen listening to everything you're saying. Residents are very concerned about retaliation. You have to realize that when you leave the building, they have to stay there. That's their home. That's where they live all the time. So there are all kinds of reasons why residents may be resistant to discussing an abuse situation with law enforcement.
I don't think that we should go in with the attitude that just because there is a limited speech or no speech or whatever, we have to attempt to communicate on some level.
Residents may feel that a law enforcement officer is not going to believe what they're saying, especially if staff are saying something different.
It might require a couple of trips. We might have to go break the ice one day and come back another day and see if they're willing to talk to us then. But we shouldn't give up if we have reason to believe that those folks need our help.
The regulations and the training for staff in assisted living has not really kept pace with the population that lives inside of assisted living. So while it used to be these board and cares were largely non-medical residents that live there, over the years their acuity has increased and they have a lot more medical needs, but the regulations, the oversight, and the staff training do not necessarily reflect that you've got staff that are caring for people who are bedridden and with higher acuity, and they're not trained to handle that. So before you know it, their care slips through their fingers and the residents are getting not cared for, which would become neglect. When there is a report of abuse or suspected abuse that occurs in a long-term care facility, that report can go to the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, or it can also go to law enforcement agencies. So often the Long-Term Care Ombudsman can collaborate and cooperate with law enforcement in responding to those reports of suspected abuse.
Licensed facilities are located throughout many cities. Some are small and in residential settings, and then there are large licensed nursing homes. When you are called to a facility to investigate elder or dependent adult abuse, what should you expect as far as compliance and access? You may be familiar with Adult Protective Services. They can assist with providing a victim with social remedies and make sure that the elder or dependent adult is in a safe environment. APS is called upon when a dependent adult victim, 18 to 64 years old, or an elder adult, 65 years or older, is in a private residence, hotel, motel, or on the street. APS should also be called when a victim is in a 24-hour care facility, such as a hospital, and is dependent on that facility for his or her care. But what about when you are called to a licensed nursing facility or board and care facility? A long-term care ombudsman is the advocate to contact.
My roommate is hurt. Yes, she needs help and I can't help her. That's her screaming. Yes, that's what you hear. Please please come quickly. We are at the River City Nursing Facility. Staff help? No, that's the reason I'm calling you. Please come quickly.
Excuse me, ma'am. We received a call of someone screaming from a room in this facility.
I'm sorry, officer. There's no problem here. We didn't call the police.
Well, did you hear any screaming?
I need to call my administrator. Can you please wait? Have a seat.
You know, screaming is pretty serious. We need you to take us to that patient right now.
Hey, what's going on with her?
Oh, she's a wanderer.
I hate for my mom to be stuck in a place like this. Hello? Ma'am, are you okay?
What happened here?
We think she fell out of bed.
That's a pretty serious injury to her arm. Has she seen a doctor?
We've called her doctor and we're waiting for him to call us back.
Wait, this is a nursing facility. You guys don't have doctors on site?
No, each resident has their own physician that deals with us.
Is she normally this non-responsive?
We gave her a sedative to calm her down and to help with the pain.
It looks like she shares this room with somebody. If there's a roommate, we need to talk to her right now.
She's being bathed right now.
Is there anything that you can tell us about what happened here?
Like I said, I need to call my administrator. Let me try him again.
We need to get her immediate medical attention. That's a really bad injury, especially for an older lady. I for sure thought they would have doctors on site. I mean, this is a nursing facility.
Apparently not. I'll take care of calling paramedics. Why don't you call the ombudsman?
What's an ombudsman?
It's basically someone who comes and checks on the people who live here. I would imagine that a place like this has an ombudsman regularly assigned to this facility. Maybe they can help shed some light on this incident.
You know, now that you mention that, I saw a poster by the nurses station. I was wondering what that was all about, but there was a phone number on there. I can go try to call them right now.
After I call paramedics, I'll track down her roommate.
Okay.
All right, so at the nursing facility, they get a call 911. How'd the officers respond?
I think they did very well. They got into the room and they were able to see the lady.
Okay.
And see that she was actually hurt and needed a doctor.
You said they got into the room. What'd they have to do to get to the room?
They had to be a little, use command presence.
So you think the nurse was being uncooperative?
Yes, very much.
She was stalling because she wasn't exactly sure what the patient was going to say.
Okay. Well, so you think her concerns were that the patient was going to say something against her or the facility? I mean, why would she want to not get the patient some care?
Well, look how convenient it was. The roommate that called was conveniently in the shower. The other subject was sedated for whatever reason.
Okay.
So now we have both witnesses or a victim unable to give us any kind of statement. So I think that would, obviously could have been the reason she was stalling.
So we have a sedated person, and let's rewind back to why we're there. What's our call? What's our
Person was screaming and needed help.
Yeah. So we went to a 911 call of somebody screaming for help.
Well, also too,
how did we get there?
The initial nurse first said there was no emergency whatsoever.
There you go. Yes, no emergency.
No one screaming.
So there's no emergency, no one screaming, yet what do we have when we get there?
A sedated, injured person.
A sedated, injured adult. So how did the nurse know which room to go to?
She knew exactly who we were talking about.
Did she? You think so?
Absolutely.
What are our obligations at this point?
So our obligation is to get medical attention, get her to the nearest hospital.
First obligation to the patient. What's our next obligation?
We also need to have them make the lady that made the caller, make her available to us, because we need to interview her to find out what happened. Was there some kind of criminal activity?
Yeah. So is this necessarily criminal?
No. Not necessarily. It could have been she just, rolled off the bed. But the questionable part is, why is there no doctor? There's no doctor there. Why is there no doctor there?
And maybe they're not required to have one. Maybe it's that kind of facility where they don't have an on-call doctor. or a staff doctor at that point. But like you said, what do we have? We have an incident,
Have eyewitness.
potentially have an eyewitness, and you're saying they're not made available to us. So what do we have to do to further our investigation?
Locate that witness first and foremost to figure out, what they can tell us, and then from there, they're gonna have to talk to staff and figure out, what their policies are, procedures, why there's a doctor on scene, figure out the nuances initially to figure out what we have.
Exactly, because you said could be criminal, could not be criminal. We don't know, but we have an obligation. What are our main concerns that we need to do in terms of documentation?
I'd be asking the nurse, okay, you say she may have fell out of the bed. There's no doctor available, okay. So who came in and bandaged up her arm? And who put her back into the bed if she was out of the bed? And who ordered the sedation?
We talked about the witness in the shower right now. Who else is a witness?
Whoever came to help her up, because the lady couldn't help her up.
Okay,
So
so
that person that came,
somebody-
she's going to make a statement. She's going to say something. I fell or something.
Yeah, we
So
want to
get
talk
a statement from that person.
Who else do we want to talk
If we
to?
have nothing else, we have an injury report because she fell and she got injured. So we
Could just be simple like that. But who else do we really want to talk to?
The potential victim herself.
Potential victim, yeah. I mean, could she clear this up pretty easily?
Yeah.
Well, that coupled with the them tying that lady up as they're walking
Yeah.
in kind of makes it seem like they have a propensity to just quiet these people or restrain them.
How does that look?
It looks bad. I mean, you can't just tie up a person because they wander off. That's abuse.
You could tell there was that almost disdain for these people, that it wasn't a caring facility. And so calling the ombudsman is going to help because they're going to come and check it out, because it may be it may be a facility that isn't caring for their people appropriately, and their license needs to be pulled.
Okay, since we're in a care facility, they do have ombudsmen. What do you know about that program?
They're the advocates for the people living in those facilities. They act as a go-between, and even if something wasn't criminal, they're supposed to advocate for those people for their rights inside the care facility.
So what would you use them for? What kind of information could you get from somebody from their office?
They'd be a great resource, and like the officers were saying on the video, maybe they've been out there before and that they see a pattern of this behavior. It might not always get reported to us, law enforcement, but maybe the people in that facility are reporting it to them, and they might have a history of the facility already that might be of use.
If they're not caring for people in the proper way, and that's where the ombudsman's office can come into play.
Sure.
And no, they're probably not going to give us information because of privacy issues, it being
We do have to get around that. I mean, is there a real potential because of age that this could be something worse?
Well, the other issue, Sarge, I saw is what if that's not her only injury? That's the only thing that's visible.
Only visible.
If she did fall out, what if she broke a hip or something like that, and that's why she was screaming in pain, and they thought she was just exaggerating, they sedated her, and when she wakes up from sedation, she has a broken hip, she's still going to be in a lot of pain.
So if we kept going down that road, what eventually could happen to our patient, our victim here?
She could die.
Quite possibly. And then what do we have in terms of our responsibilities from just a 911 call?
Well, documentation, because if it does rise to that level of potential, a fatality, especially in care facility, then it's a lot of people are going to be involved, and they're going to want to know from the very beginning what our steps were: documentation, notification,
got the medical aid,
medical
right
aid,
away.
all that stuff. So we can say that we did, what we recognize as far as injuries, people we spoke with, so they don't have to go back and fill in those gaps.
What did you see about the officers? How did they handle it? What did you like that they did?
They seem to be doing everything right. They were, one was notified of medical aid, and the other one was going to notify the ombudsman program.
All right, good discussion. All right, have a good shift.
We have very little exposure to those facilities, so when we walk in, we do feel that we're in unfamiliar territory. And so we do look to the nurse or the doctor or whoever is the medical staff to do the right thing. So we are surprised when we do meet resistance when we enter a facility like that and the nurse is not completely cooperative. And pretty quickly you realize that they're trying to prevent you from accessing the rest of the facility.
We have the right to go in and find out what's going on. We have probable cause to be there and investigate what is going on. Why did someone call 911? As an officer, be assertive. Ask for the medical records. They may be altered. either with something they've left out or something they put in.
You know, the United States Attorney General has put forth a letter that states that it is acceptable for people in healthcare to provide documentation to law enforcement and adult protective services when there's a concern about abuse or neglect. And those of us in healthcare should not be hiding behind HIPAA. And if we are hiding behind HIPAA, it is within your right as law enforcement to say, no, I am allowed to have access to this information and I want it.
Physical and chemical restraints can never be used for the convenience of the staff, but we see that occur frequently. So if you have a resident who has a tendency to wander or not be safe, they'll just give them a strong sedative to knock them out as opposed to having the staffing necessary to provide appropriate care.
There are many facilities that are beautiful homes or beautiful facilities in the community, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the residents within that facility are well cared for or that their rights are being respected.
There are many times when that one report that law enforcement makes to the ombudsman or the regulatory agency can make a tremendous impact.
Officers need to, when they may be called in for one thing, need to look at more that could be going on inside the facility with staff. How many staff are there? Take an intake of the staff, take an intake of the other residents.
One of the several things that a law enforcement officer should look for when they respond to the scene is the total scene surrounding. Does it look like it was just cleaned up before the officer arrived, or does it look like that's the everyday living condition?
Understand what a long-term care ombudsman's role is and what they can do to assist you in your investigation.
In California, the long-term care ombudsman program is charged with receiving reports and investigating suspected abuse of elder and dependent adults when that abuse occurs in long-term care facilities.
In the ombudsman world, we're not only looking for criminal and civil prosecutions, we're also looking for regulatory violations to be brought to the surface to help improve quality of care for residents in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. And law enforcement can be key to helping us do that.
The Ombudsman program could provide general information to law enforcement about the facility. We may have information about facility staff, particular staff members that they should be aware of. And we can go in with them and help residents feel comfortable if law enforcement wants us there when they're doing an investigation. We can collaborate with them to the extent that they want us there. We cannot disclose information about a particular resident if that resident does not want us to do so.
So law enforcement's uniquely qualified to take in that information. And in addition, it could be days before a state analyst would go out and investigate a complaint of abuse, whereas law enforcement, if they're immediately out there, can collect this valuable, almost perishable evidence that won't be available days later when state licensing comes out there.
Anybody who's investigating a facility can come to us to find out if we've had previous cases that we've investigated, or if we're in the middle of an investigation. Many times we're getting multiple referrals from different agencies, and so we may be in the middle of an investigation and then have another law enforcement agency come to us and ask us if we're aware of this facility, and we can say yes, and then it just adds more strength to that case.
Just because an elder or dependent adult is in a facility doesn't mean they have given up their personal rights. Keep in mind that there are many agencies that you can cross-report to. The Bureau of Medi-Cal Fraud and Elder Abuse must be contacted as they investigate cases of abuse and neglect of patients in nursing homes and other long-term care facilities.
The importance of calling APS immediately or from the scene would be to accelerate resources for the victim. Adult Protective Services may want to respond out to the home if it's during normal working hours, and with the police officer already present, it ensures that that adult protective services worker is going to be safe when they come to the home, and that may be the best time to actually communicate with the victim because the perpetrator has been removed from the home. Because I think the more time that goes by, oftentimes elders or victims regret what happened. They regret calling the police, they regret telling their story because it resulted in having their family member arrested.
The most significant difference between an elder being physically abused and someone who may be 20 or 40 years old is the physical fact that elders are physically more fragile. Their skin is thinner, their bones are more fragile, so that when an officer is investigating a type of physical abuse on an elder, the same amount of force used on an elder can cause far more debilitating injuries to that elder than if you use the same force on someone who's 20.
Letting other agencies know that an incident has occurred, regardless of whether it is criminal or not, is important. Make sure to fill out and fax Form SOC 341 to alert other regulatory agencies. In some areas, you can file the report online. Your report could be helpful for other agencies' investigations.
Oh my God, Shirley, what happened? It's just Danny. He gets angry sometimes. He just needs to cool down. Well, let me help you to my house and I'll wash it off. No, I'll be okay. Can I help you at all? No, I just need a minute to calm down myself. Thank you.
Hey, officers.
Hey, sir, we received a call that somebody inside needed some medical attention.
Oh, no, hey, no, we're all good here.
I can actually see her from here.
Oh, no, hey, no, this is just a family matter. I mean, you know what, besides, she's a little clumsy sometimes.
Do you mind if I go inside and just make sure she's okay?
Sure. Come on in.
Go ahead, partner. Go check her out. I'll stay with him. Hey, sir. Why don't you go ahead and take a couple steps back for me?
Okay,
Come stand over here.
We're good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great.
Hi, ma'am. Do you mind if I have a seat and we can talk about what happened?
Go ahead.
So we received a call that you might need some medical attention.
You mean this?
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. My neighbor called you, didn't she?
It doesn't really matter who called us. The important thing is that we're here now and we're here to help you. So what happened?
My son, Danny. He has a short fuse. He gets mad sometimes, and he gets out of control.
How old is your son?
48. Finding work is a challenge for him. He has a lot of stress.
And do you mind me asking how old you are?
68.
That's quite an injury I see on your face there. Can I call the paramedics to have them come check you out?
No, I'll be okay.
Can you tell me what happened?
Well, my son Danny gets out of control and hits me.
When did he hit you?
Today.
Is this the first time your son's hit you?
No. He comes around and asks me for money. I refuse to give him any, and that gets him mad.
Does Danny live here with you?
No, he lives next town. He seems to come every time he needs something. I usually help him, but not when he's drunk. I'll never do that again.
All right, sir. I'm just going to have you sit tight for just a minute here.
Oh, no, okay, yeah, no, we're good. I'm good.
Hey, Todd. Why don't you go ahead and keep an eye on him real quick?
Okay, all right, we're good. How you doing, Todd? Okay.
What do we got?
She said her son hit her.
So,
Hey, Danny.
Kyra, huh?
Why don't you go and step outside for us real quick?
Oh, hey, what's
Come on.
what? Mom, hey, Mom, what did you tell them?
Oh, please, don't arrest him. He didn't mean it.
Hey, no, look, this is a big misunderstanding. It's between my mom and me.
I wasn't giving in to his plan. I should have just given him the $20 he asked for.
Ma'am, it's not okay for your son to hit you. I know you're probably scared right now, but you shouldn't be living in this house and being fearful of your son. We're going to get you the help that you need.
So what do we got?
I think we have elder abuse because Miss Thompson's 68.
Okay. What should we do next?
I think I should go in there and try to convince her to have paramedics come check her out, and I'm going to write a report and probably something else.
something else. How about calling APS, getting an EPO, a TRO?
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
So the son and the mom, what'd you see there?
Elder abuse because of her age?
Elder abuse because of her age. How old does she look?
She looks good for 68. She looks more like she's 58. She looks
so
good.
how'd that officer that initially interviewed her, how'd he do?
He did very well. He asked.
He did well. Actually, sometimes that helps him being a trainee because he's going to make sure he asks all those questions.
Yeah. She seemed maybe a little reluctant at first. Why do you think she's behaving like that?
It's her son.
She doesn't want to get him in trouble.
Doesn't want to get him in trouble. It's her son. What else?
She feels it's her fault.
Think so? Think she might have a little responsibility that...
She made a lot of excuses for him. He's under a lot of stress. He can't be looking for a job, and she's trying to make it okay, but, it wasn't.
So what do you think him going to jail? Is this a good thing? It's a bad thing?
It's a good thing.
Why is that? Why is it a good thing he's going to jail?
Because at least now something's being documented, and she's gonna be able to get that EPO, and and hopefully he'll spend some time in jail and maybe get off. I think she said he's on drugs or he's an alcoholic or something. Maybe they may force him to do some, counseling to get off that, and then maybe he'll come out and be a better person.
Let's say the officers just go and they find out, and they believe her story and just leave. What happens then?
She's back at risk.
Yeah, we got more risk factors.
Mm-hmm.
What possible things do you see happening if we don't take action?
He could eventually kill her, hit her hard enough. He's a big guy. She's a little woman. Hit her hard enough, she falls, hits her head, or he'd eventually end up killing his mom.
Right, so there's a good intervention there, good decision making. So if you get there and neither of them are going to be really that cooperative, where do you go from there? Should you get there and she doesn't really want to tell you what happened,
Well, the caller, she already told the caller that Danny hit her, so he's still good to go.
What other steps would you take?
Interviewing, getting a good interview from the caller, and you get her locked into, what the victim said to her.
Yeah, good statement there.
Obviously getting APS involved.
Yeah.
And then help her with the court process, TRO, that kind of stuff.
Do we usually underreport that or overreport that type of an incident?
Underreport.
Yeah. So we said already based on her age, their relationship, we have some issues to deal with. What's our prior history at this residence?
That'd be something we need to further investigate.
Okay.
Search CAD or search with investigations to see or in the computer system, see if we've been out there before, see if there's been reports, see what his background's like, if he's been arrested before for something like this, for elder abuse, maybe on his dad or maybe on some other, that'd be all pertinent to this.
So with her mark on her face and her statements, pretty straightforward elder abuse, physical abuse. What other considerations are we gonna take before we leave?
Call the judge, get an EPO. It certainly qualify in this circumstance. Tell her about the restraining order process. She's kind of didn't want him arrested from the appearance of it. It probably would have helped to get a recorded interview prior to it, because her story might change down the line. She doesn't want him arrested, doesn't want to go to court. She's not going to be a cooperative witness in court. That might have helped before we show that he's getting arrested, because she probably will change her story. And interview the neighbors, like we said before, that would help.
Yeah. How's she feel about him?
She loves him.
Yeah, you can see the caring there. She really doesn't want him to go to jail, but is that probably the best thing for everybody involved, and why?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that the best thing if he goes to jail?
It protects her for that moment until further things can be put in place.
Exactly. How many other victims do we have out here potentially? If you look at this guy as a suspect.
Is he married?
Does
he have kids? There are other people that, especially if he has that propensity for violence when he's drunk, usually they don't limit it to one person. So,
yeah, some good follow-up questions there. Find out, make sure there's no other victims that we would need to address. What do you think about the officer when he's talking to her and she asked, "Hey, was that my neighbor that called?" What do you think about his answer and his response?
You don't want her confronting this person, and you definitely don't want to deter this person from reporting it in the future. Yeah. Because while mom is trying to protect her son, this neighbor actually cared.
Mm-hmm. On another note, if he finds out, if mom is on his side and he gets out of jail, finds out who the neighbor was,
she's a potential
victim as well.
Any other considerations? Anybody else you're going to call?
Maybe a family member to notify them that this has happened, that their mom or wife or whoever the relationship is injured, and make them aware that this problem happened. They might be able to shed history of this happening too, and they might have witnessed it before. That would give us the background history of this, but it also puts them on notice. Hey, watch for this for when he comes over again, if he does.
Yeah, great resource there to have family members there. All right, those are all excellent points. Let's hope it doesn't happen during our shift. Be safe out there.
It is the responsibility of the officer to make sure that all the different agencies are notified.
Law enforcement's really great as far as coming out and helping us, preserving the peace, making sure that we're safe, and then sharing information on our cases to strengthen a prosecution down the road if that's what's going to happen.
So what Adult Protective Services can do by receiving that cross report, Adult Protective Services can initiate their own investigation to offer preventive and remedial services, develop a service plan, and therefore a protective mechanism by staying with the older person systematically through this very shocking process.
One of the things that APS really would like to see law enforcement do is take incident reports when they see things happening that may not rise to the level of a crime, because we are looking for patterns.
So with our elder family abuse cases, you see this very strong protective instinct by the parents, where they don't want anything bad to happen to their child, and the something bad is usually going to jail or getting prosecuted, so they start making excuses for why the child did what he or she did.
Because we see that a lot. We see recanting victims who recant for a lot of different reasons, not only because they love their sons, their daughters, their husbands, wives, family members. They may also be being intimidated by those people. They may be afraid that they aren't going to see their grandchildren if they try to go forward with prosecution.
In some cases, they're children that aren't working, they're not self-sustaining. They may have difficulties with alcohol or drugs. I think that it's very complicated in some ways, in that we see a lot of unhealthy family dynamics just growing through the decades and then ending up in a case of elder abuse.
So it's important for the patrol officer responding to an assault involving an elder to determine that person's age, because that makes the difference between whether we're going to charge the son with simple assault or aggravated assault versus PC 368, which is elder abuse.
The emergency protective order is the one that we get as law enforcement officers. It's good for 7 days. We can get it 24/7 and for an immediate protection. The importance of these orders, the EPO, CPO, and TRO, is that we're going to protect the victim for a longer period of time. The courts are going to take it seriously with a criminal protective order. The temporary restraining orders can keep the bad guys away.
I would encourage a patrol officer to call a judge and request an emergency protective restraining order when an assault has occurred, whether the victim or the elder wants the restraining order or not.
So law enforcement may have gone out and arrested a suspect, and they may have even asked for an emergency protective order, but then the client needs to go in and get a restraining order in civil court, and Adult Protective Services can help with that.
So it's really important that we find the truth, help the victim, and sometimes the perpetrator needs a lot of help as well, and sometimes they need something like jail.
We explain to the victim that, look, your family member or your friend or this person that victimized you, they may be arrested. That doesn't mean they're going to spend the rest of their life in jail.
I think now more than ever it becomes important for law enforcement officers to explain to victims that an arrest is not necessarily a bad thing, because when a police officer gets called to a home, when they write a police report or they make an arrest, there are certain services that are now available to this victim or to this family that had the arrest not occurred, those services would not have been activated.
Elder and dependent adult abuse is sometimes called the invisible epidemic. These are consistently underreported crimes. Be mindful when responding to these calls and pick up on the cues that there might be more under the surface and report accordingly. We hope that this training video has given you some insight on the importance of investigating and reporting abuse against elders and dependent adults. I'm Mark Bailey, and on behalf of the Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, we'd like to thank you for watching this program. I encourage you now to take a moment to listen to some final thoughts from our subject matter experts. This course is designed to be facilitated in a group setting. Before conducting a group training session, you should review and become familiar with the material in this program. Open and print the facilitator guide and go through the program yourself before putting the course on for others. As the facilitator, your job is to engage your students in constructive, free-flowing discussion on the key learning points of this training topic. Use the tools provided in this program to stimulate critical thinking and situational awareness in the group by viewing the scenarios, expert interviews, and discussion videos. Questions and activities are provided to promote group interaction and discussion on the training topic. Customize the learning experience by applying your agency policy and procedures to the training concepts. Segments in this program accommodate shorter training periods, such as during roll call training sessions. Track your students' progress through the entire program. As the facilitator, you need to know that your students have gone through the material and sufficiently mastered the learning objectives. Once the students have successfully completed the program, submit your training roster to POST for CPT credit. Following this plan will help to create an environment for the debate of ideas, sharing of wisdom based on experience, and encourage a greater understanding of local policies and procedures. We wish you and your agency all the best in successfully implementing this program. This course is designed to be facilitated in a group setting. However, when that is not possible, here are some instructions for getting the most out of this training program so that you may receive continuing professional training or CPT credit. Obtain permission from your agency trainer or supervisor to view the course for training credit, and let them know you will be viewing the program. This will give them some time to review the course themselves and be prepared to discuss it with you later on. Open and print the student study guide so that you can take notes and fill out responses to the questions and activities. Think about how the training concepts presented apply to your agency policy and procedures. You may view the scenarios, expert interviews, and discussion videos several times to assist you in providing responses. Keep track of your progress as you complete the segments in this course. When you have finished the entire program, inform the trainer that you would like to review the course with them. Send them your completed student study guide prior to meetings so that they have had a chance to review your responses. Scheduling a face-to-face meeting with your trainer is the best way to review your work on the course. If this is not possible, arrange a phone call meeting. But in either case, allow time to review and discuss your responses. Your supervisor or trainer may require additional work or feedback from you before giving CPT credit. They may want to evaluate your understanding of how the training points relate to your agency policy, for instance. It is their discretion in determining whether you have adequately completed the course. Following these instructions will give you the best opportunity not only to receive CPT credit, but to grasp the training concepts, benefit from the experience of others, and apply the training and experience to your local policy and procedures. We wish you and your agency all the best in successfully completing this course.
The job of a law enforcement officer, by its own description, causes us to deal with the very worst of things. And it's how we deal with them. And the thing to remember is that person is somebody's loved one. That person is somebody's mother, father, sister, brother. And we treat them with the dignity that they deserve.
Older people, dependent adults, they have the right to live in the least restrictive environment, free from abuse.
You know, this is a group of people, they're really special and they're really unique. And just because they're elder or dependent adult doesn't mean that we should, as a society, shouldn't protect them and just take care of them. And that's what the source of the elder and dependent adult code sections are all about. It's about protecting this group of people from abuse, from neglect, and from financial abuse.
They're vulnerable individuals that need protection, that need people. They need advocates out there, whether it's law enforcement or adult protective services or ombudsmen. They need people like us to keep them safe.
elders and dependent adults sometimes get lost in the shuffle, either because they're non-communicative or they're fairly passive or they're fairly quiet, either because they're in a role where they're being abused and so they've learned not to speak up. But I think it's more important now that officers recognize the signs and symptoms of abuse and ask those questions that are going to elicit a response as to what's going on with this person.
I think that as we all grow older, whether we're currently young or currently middle-aged, we're all going to be elders, hopefully. And I think that it's important that police officers and deputy sheriffs understand these laws because we're all going to be a victim of time.
Just stepping in and being there for that person, giving them someone who's actually hearing what's happening to them, connecting them up with services can prolong someone's life like you would not believe. I mean, it can put years on their life that they wouldn't have had otherwise.
I hope that officers walk away feeling empowered, that they really can make a difference in the lives of seniors and helping them reclaim dignity and their health and safety if that's slowly being eroded or has abruptly been taken away. I think they could change the trajectory of seniors' lives.
When you see these calls holding, volunteer for them, jump on them, take advantage of a good learning opportunity and a chance to help somebody that really, really supports you and needs your help.
The last thing any of us want is to come back 2 years later and know that this person has been neglected to death and that we failed to intervene when we had an opportunity.
You could save somebody's life or save them from years of misery, no doubt about it. When you help an elder that is truly in jeopardy or a dependent adult truly in jeopardy, it feels good. It's one of the best feelings you'll have in this job, there's no doubt about it. You'll walk away saying, wow, that was good.